Hi, I'm Jane Hilsden, marketing consultant and founder of Dragonfly Marketing. Welcome to this episode of the How to Do Marketing Show, a no-nonsense podcast about marketing for small business. It's our mission at Dragonfly Marketing to put marketing on the agenda for every regionally based small business in Australia. Why? Because we know that when marketing is done properly, it can help your business grow. We believe small businesses are the backbone of our nation. When your business grows, it benefits not only you and your family, it benefits your whole community. Small businesses create a vibrant and connected economy. We employ local people, we donate to local charities, and we work together to build resilient and thriving regional communities. The How to Do Marketing Show is a podcast just for you and your small business. Bursting with marketing insight and information, this show will be a fabulous resource to help you know all there is to know about the topic of marketing for small business. In this episode, we are talking about the world of Google advertising. Did you know that there are over 2.3 million searches conducted each minute on Google? Insane, right? Honestly, this can be a bit of a minefield for small businesses. Even trying to outsource this quite technical activity can be really confusing, as most small business owners don't really know what to ask for or what good looks like. Plus, how do you know that the digital advertising agency you are using is not taking you for a ride? I'm interviewing Ilana Weschler today, founder of boutique digital agency Green Arrow Digital. Her agency specialises solely in what's called pay-per-click marketing. And honestly, she is so impressive in her work and the results that she achieves for her clients. I couldn't think of anyone better to help provide you with some advice about how to get your business in front of your potential customers using the Google Ad platform. I've known Ilana for several years now and watched as her agency has gone from strength to strength. She's the only person that I refer clients to in this space because she seriously knows her stuff. Plus, she is really good at breaking down super technical concepts into layman terms. Ilana, can you start off by explaining why and when a small business might consider running Google Ads? And what are the different types of Google advertising that are available to small businesses?
Okay, so why don't I start with the second part of your question first, and then we'll get into the why someone would use it. So I find that there's a bit of confusion in the market as to what actually Google Ad does and the scope. So it's actually a massive ad platform. Many people don't realize just how big it is. And I'm a bit of a visual person, so I like to think of Google having 4 distinct and separate buckets to their system. The first bucket everyone knows and loves is what's called their Google Search Network, which we've all done a Google search before. And that's someone who types something into Google, for example, lawyer Port Macquarie, let's say, and those 4 little text ads come up above the organic results. Okay, so the person who would be advertising there advertises based on what somebody has just typed into Google. Okay, so that's the first bucket, which is the search network. The second bucket, which is completely separate to the search network, is what's called the Google Display Network, or otherwise known as the GDN for technical people. And that is showing banners on other people's websites, so publisher websites. So think for Australian listeners, the Sydney Morning Herald, The Age; for American listeners, New York Times, LA Times. So contrast to, if you wanted to advertise in, let's say, the Sydney Morning Herald, you'd have to contact them and pay for a placement, or like what would it called? I don't even know what you'd call like an ad in a local paper. You pay a flat fee. This is different. You just say to Google's like the middleman here, and you say to Google, I want to advertise on this particular website, and you only pay when somebody clicks on your ad. So typically you get lots of what's called impressions, so lots of people seeing your ad. You might not get that many people clicking on it, but it doesn't really matter because you're only paying for a click. Okay, so the third bucket, which is also completely separate to the first 2, is YouTube. Most people know that Google owns YouTube, and it's boasted very much by Google as being the world's second largest search engine. And it's obviously a massive ad platform. And so typically most people on YouTube do what's called the in-stream videos, which is the video that comes up before the video that you want to watch. Okay, so interrupting someone before they're about to watch a video. So that's YouTube. And the fourth bucket is what's called Google Shopping, which is if you're in e-commerce and you sell a particular product, those are the image ads with a price under them that show up on google.com. Okay, so now that you sort of are aware of the scope of the possibilities on advertising on Google, why someone would do it depends obviously what they're trying to promote. So if they're a local type business, let's say, as I said, like a lawyer in Port Macquarie, because that's where you are, that's the example I'm going to use, they would want to advertise to people who are in their area who are actively and right now searching for exactly what they provide. It's an amazing advertising opportunity, and the people of Google were very, very clever when they created this ad platform, because if you think about it, as a business owner, you're sliding your business card under the nose of someone at literally the instant that they have searched for it. It's an amazing advertising opportunity when you think about it. You don't have to convince someone to get their will redone, or, seek a lawyer for buying a property, for continuing with this same example. You know that they want that. They've literally just typed it into Google, and you're saying, hey, I offer these particular services, and you only pay when someone clicks on your ad.
Yes, yeah, that makes complete sense. And so on that, what's the difference between a small business advertising using Google Ads, any of those buckets, versus advertising on social media platforms such as Facebook?
Well, they're completely different ad platforms. Firstly, I personally, and once again, we come back to these distinct buckets, which is why it sort of was worth touching on. When you advertise on Google, you're certainly not advertising on all those four buckets. You can be selective to say, hey, I only want to advertise on the search network. I don't even want to engage in, putting banners on New York Times, for example, because, hey, I'm a local business in Port Macquarie. I don't need to advertise globally, and I don't need to even advertise in Sydney, for example. Yeah. I only want to advertise when somebody has typed in exactly this in my geographical area. So there's a huge amount of intent when you advertise on Google. Contrast that to advertising on Facebook, where, I don't know about you, but I don't go to Facebook to buy brake pads for my car, right? I go to Facebook to, some light entertainment, participate in some Facebook groups that I'm members of, and, have a look at my friends' photos. So it's what's called interruption marketing. You're interrupting someone from what it is they're actively doing right now, which is kind of like the Google Display Network bucket. I'm reading an article on the Sydney Morning Herald, or I'm looking at something to buy on Gumtree, for example, and they're interrupting me in that experience. It doesn't mean it's not worth doing. It's just a different form of advertising, and you need actually a different ad. You need to entice people and spike some curiosity in people versus, hey, I know you're looking for a lawyer in Port Macquarie. You're just deciding who you're going to go to, not if you need one. Yes. And so therefore it's a different ad for a different level of intent and experience.
Yes. So advertising on social media such as Facebook, or even putting the little ad before a video that someone might be searching for content within the video, but the ad appears in the YouTube video clip before that video starts. That kind of advertising kind of sits at the top of the funnel in terms of, this is more about making people aware of your brand, keeping it front of mind, getting your visual look and feel like a logo, a message about your brand in front of people, knowing that there's not necessarily the intent to buy now, but there could be the intent to buy later on. And hopefully, if they see enough of your brand, you know, whether it be on a YouTube ad or within the display network or on Facebook ads or Instagram, wherever, if they've seen that for long enough, when they do have the intent to buy and when they do put the search term into Google, when your listing comes up, whether you're advertising or whether you've just done some great SEO and your website appears in front of them, they will have seen enough of you and they will know your brand and like your brand because they will have seen enough of it to be able to help them kind of push them along the sales process a bit. Is that fair?
Absolutely. And that's, I guess, just one part of it. But I'm going to, I guess, add to that. And let's say, you know, someone has come to your website, you know, before, maybe in the last 7 to 14 days, and then they don't contact you because they're not quite ready to buy, which is fine. And therefore you can tag them with some tracking code, and you can follow them around the internet. You can say, hey, you know, you were checking this out. Do you want to, you know, continue with your purchase, etc.? So that's called retargeting or remarketing in the industry. And that's another application. So, you know, that as you explained, the video coming up before they're going to watch, that you can choose to only do that for people who've come to your website before, rather than trying to go up the funnel. That's actually a bottom of funnel technique.
Yes.
You know someone's interested in your product or service because they've literally been to your website in the last 7 days. It's kind of like a second bite of the cherry, you know, because I don't know about you, or like you, all right, I've got 3 kids. My life is pretty busy.
Yeah.
And therefore me not buying something doesn't necessarily mean I'm not interested in the product. It kind of just means life kind of got in the way, right?
Yeah.
And so sometimes I need a little bit of a prod going, oh, that's right, I was looking at buying, you know, XYZ, or looking at, you know, redoing my will, for example, and I wasn't quite ready to make that, you know, final decision.
Yeah.
And therefore it's just, you know, pushing people off the fence a little bit.
Yeah. And I'm one of those people where if I've discovered something, so something, if a piece of advertising has maybe caught my eye on Facebook, or an email has dropped into my inbox from one of the fashion brands that I subscribe to or whatever, and I follow the trail, you know, I click here and I go and check out, you know, let's say it's Gorman, and they've sent me an email and they're showing me their latest range. So I click through and I go to their website and I discover, you know, this awesome pantsuit, for example, but then go, oh gosh, it's $300. You know, that's a bit too much to spend on an off the, you know, on a spontaneous discovery. But I sit there going, but I'll consider it. And I sit there with the tab open, you know, knowing that I regularly check my tabs to see, oh, what do I need to go back to? You know, so it might take me a couple of days to actually kind of think about it. Now, if Gorman are smart enough to go, oh, hang on a second, she's clicked all the way through to the pantsuit, you know, she's left the page open kind of thing. Now, if they're smart enough to actually get back in front of me over the next 3 days with whatever advertising they can put in place, that's something that might kind of help, you know, convince me to part with my $300. Yeah.
Absolutely. And imagine if they then show you an ad with like a bit of an upsell, like saying, you know, if you buy the pantsuit, you get this for free, maybe, or some kind of offer to just sort of go sweeten the deal just that little bit more to go, all right, yeah, you know,
tip me over the edge,
totally
stimulate that economy. Okay, so let's look at the bucket of Google search, because it's probably the one that people are most familiar with. So when it comes to Google search and bidding on keywords that will help you get found by customers looking for products and services that you sell, can you just explain a little bit about how this works and how some of the keywords, and I know I've heard you speak about top of funnel keywords versus bottom funnel keywords. Can you just explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah, and I think the best way I can explain it is, I often say to people, you have to transport yourself into the mind of somebody, of your target customer, right? So if we go with the lawyer example, we'll just continue on with that. If I am looking for a lawyer, you know, hence the experience of transporting myself into the mind of somebody who might be looking for a lawyer, what's the type of thing that I would type into Google? Now, and what they type in would be a reflection of kind of how far down they are in the journey. So if I go to Google and I type in just lawyer and that's it, like the single word of lawyer, well, yes, I'm looking for a lawyer, but I might be looking for lots of different things related to a lawyer. I might be wondering, what is the job description of a lawyer? Because my kid might be wanting to do law, and therefore what are the different varieties of roles? I might be looking to define what a lawyer is. I might be looking to, I don't know, see what their salary could be. I don't know. I'm making it up, right?
Yeah.
But the point is, it could mean anything. You know, what people type into Google is often, you know, very weird and not really English. So you need to be quite specific in the keyword that you're bidding on to try and capture the people at the bottom of the funnel. So if you're a lawyer in Port Macquarie, well, I would assume that if somebody types in lawyer Port Macquarie, well, that is very specific. There is a huge amount of intent by the sheer inclusion of the location there that deems them to be interested in a lawyer in Port Macquarie, right? The same with sort of surrounding areas, maybe lawyer, I don't know, Byron Bay, or I'm not sure where.
Oh, I wish that was it. Yeah. That was close. Lawyer Coffs Harbour. Yeah,
lawyer Coffs Harbour, exactly. Yeah. And so surrounding areas where somebody typed that in would be prepared to travel to Port Macquarie if that's where the location is. Okay. Yeah. Also, what about if, once again, I transport myself into the mind of the target customer and I type into Google lawyer for writing a will, property lawyer, Port Macquarie, all these different things which would, I can extrapolate and interpret that they're actually quite ready to engage someone with my potential services, and therefore I'm going to bid on that keyword. Now, there's a little bit of a catch with this if you are going to dabble with Google Ads, and I do recommend you do, but I have what's called the Google gotchas. There's little gotchas that Google have embedded in their ad system which catch people out. So that's why I want to alert people to this.
Yeah.
And they have what's called keyword match types. Okay. And keyword match types by basically giving you permission for Google to show your ad for more than what you've typed into Google. So for example, let's continue with this lawyer Port Macquarie example. Say I say to Google, hey Google, I want my ad to appear when somebody types in lawyer Port Macquarie, right? And I say, and I want my ad to appear when only someone types in that. Okay. Mm-hmm. So what about when someone types in lawyer in Port Macquarie, right? They've inserted in, or best lawyer Port Macquarie, or lawyer Port Macquarie, Burke Street. I don't know. I'm making up a street. People insert variations to that. Okay. So you can open the door to what's called search term variations and say to Google, I want these lawyer and Port Macquarie to be somewhere in what somebody types in, but hey, as long as they're there, then you can feel free to show my ad when they put in other things as well.
Right.
Okay. Now, so you can relay this information to Google by putting certain syntax in front of your keywords. So typically people just type in the keyword, they type in lawyer Port Macquarie with nothing else around the word. And so what happens is that is called broad match type, which basically means that Google will show your ad for lots of things that you don't actually want. So actually, I used to specialize in dentists. I've done 1,000,001 dental accounts in my history, and I audited a dental account recently. So that's a similar type of business to a lawyer. It's very local based. It's, that kind of stuff. So they had used this broad match type keyword, which basically meant that they opened the door to their ad showing up for terms like dentist Melbourne, dentist Hobart, dentist Perth, and literally all around Australia. Right. So you need to be really, really careful with this. And so if you are going to do this, you put a plus in front of the keyword. So you would have plus lawyer, plus Port Macquarie.
Right.
And that forces Google to only show your ad when somebody has lawyer and Port Macquarie somewhere in the search term.
Right. And that could, I guess, be the same for a service. Like if you're a legal
100%.
firm and all you do is wills, you might do the plus in front of the will. So if someone's looking for a conveyancing lawyer, they don't come to you, because essentially you're paying for when people click through on search, right? Is that what are you paying for the impressions, or are you paying for the clicks if someone clicks on your site?
Only pay for the clicks.
So you're still only paying for the clicks, but you don't want people clicking from Perth or people that want conveyancing if you're just doing wills.
That's exactly right.
Right. Okay. Oh, that's a really good tip. Excellent. Okay, cool.
Catches people out. And I said it's one of these Google watches, because you wouldn't have any inclination that that's what's happening. And Google is certainly not forthright with this information.
No.
And people waste literally thousands of dollars.
Well, you would. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Totally
and we'll get onto the reports that can be generated from Google as well. But I think that they can be so confusing to understand. And sometimes if people are just looking for metrics, like, well, this is how many clicks that you received, but not actually go, but guess what? 97% of those were from Perth and you're based in Port Macquarie as a dentist or a lawyer or whatever.
Yep.
Well, that's wonderful that you got those clicks, but those clicks are actually never going to drive any financial return to your business. So
that's right.
That's a really, really good point. Now, you touched on retargeting before. And behavioral targeting work and how behavioral targeting works in terms of, if someone interacts with an ad or a video by watching it, or a website by visiting it and maybe, clicking on some pages that indicate that they're interested in a product. Why is this concept for a small business? So why is this concept kind of so important for a small business to understand? Because you've said that there's a clear indication there that if they've gone to the website, like me with the pantsuit, I'm interested in it. So of course that's kind of a bit more of low hanging fruit. But honestly, there's so many small business owners that have never heard of retargeting or remarketing. B, of course, if they haven't heard of it, they're not using it. So why is it so important that we need to kind of, get this retargeting and remarketing activity more widely understood by small business owners?
Well, it works incredibly well and it doesn't cost a lot of money. So the return on investment is huge. And I don't know if you follow any sort of marketers that show amazing screenshots of I spent $10 on ads and I made $3,432. Chances are that's a retargeting campaign. In fact, 99.9% it is.
Interesting.
And of course, right, someone's come to your website like you. They're tempted. It's not an impulse purchase. They're not quite ready to buy. Maybe there was an offer that was shown that sort of sweetened the deal for them and they ended up purchasing. So you're only showing ads to a very, very targeted subset of people.
Yes.
So you're not sort of going out cold and to the wider population. You're only showing ads to people who've come to your website before. You're not talking about a lot of people. So it really doesn't cost a lot of money. And therefore, and it works incredibly well. The only problem with it is you end up showing ads to your entire audience probably pretty quickly. And so you max out on that audience. But it doesn't mean it's not worth doing. It just means then you just need to get more people to your website so that can build your retargeting list. But if I had $1 for every time someone said to me, oh my God, my competitors are spending a fortune on ads. I see their ads everywhere. It's like, well, no, actually, you've probably gone to their website, you're on their retargeting list, and they're just retargeting to you. It feels like they're spending money everywhere, but they're just spending it on you and the select people who are coming to their website.
Yeah. And I must say, I haven't had any experience using it with the Google ad suite, but I certainly use it a lot in the Facebook ad platform.
It happens all the time, and I don't understand. So many businesses will only do retargeting on social, and like it happened to me recently. I was looking to buy a cleaning product for my daughter because she suffers from eczema, and so I was looking to get this like low toxin type cleaning product, and I wasn't quite ready to buy because, you know, like you, my life's pretty crazy and I wasn't quite sure. And I left, and they only retargeted me on Facebook and Instagram. And I just thought, that's such a missed opportunity. Like, you should retarget. Yeah, anyway.
Yeah. Oh, and look, I agree, and I'll be completely transparent. The only reason why I haven't done it on Google is because I don't know how, which is why I'm speaking to you, Ilana. The Facebook ad platform, I spend a lot of time on social, and it's just easy for me to navigate. Whereas the Google, as soon as any of my clients want to advertise on Google, that's something that I outsource because it's just, it does my head in terms of trying to understand how to set that up. But yes, no, I know that it's important to do it on both platforms. And I would urge businesses to, you know, obviously go back to the strategic planning stage and go, okay, well, what is the customer journey here? What's the potential online customer journey for your target persona? And if, you know, that's most likely going to involve some sort of social channel, depending on, you know, their demographic, most likely, and then it's going to involve the Google platform, because they'll be at a different stage of the funnel as you were talking about. So I agree with you, it's 100% necessary, and we'll talk about some of the courses that you offer around that after this, because that's probably a good way that a lot of small businesses can learn about this. Would you think?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, you know, just to go back on that point of only retargeting on social, like, I don't know about you, but you know, social media is great fun, whatever, but it's a bit of a productivity killer for me. And so I frequently take a social media detox and go, I've got to turn this off for a while because it's distracting me and I've got to complete these tasks. And so therefore, you know, if you only retarget on social and I take a detox, you've lost the ability to market to me.
Yeah, you know? That's right. Oh, it's putting all your eggs in one basket. Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm constantly preaching, you know, I think people do become really reliant on the social platforms because they are so easy to navigate. But you're completely at the whim of those social platforms as well. So, you know, if they change the rules of their environment, and it's the same with Google to an extent as well. But you know, if they change the rules, if it shuts down, if you know if they shut down your account or whatever, that's it, gone. You know, that's done. You've lost everything that you've done on that platform. So it absolutely makes sense to diversify.
Yeah, I do find though, like, I mean, advertising on social is great, and I don't mean to discourage people to do it. It's great, and it's a much more forgiving ad platform. And what I mean by that is, you know, you could be what's called the bad ad manager and show ads to your customers. So, for example, let's say you do end up buying that pantsuit from Gorman, right? And bad ad management would be that they show you an ad for that pantsuit that you just bought, right?
Yes.
That would be bad, right?
Oh, so annoying. Yeah.
But on social, right, what I find happens is you've bought that, right? And suddenly you see an ad for it. If you love the product and you love that pantsuit, you're going to most likely, not always, but comment going, I bought this, it's fabulous, I wear it and I feel like $1 million, right? Yeah. Suddenly that ad is transformed because it's sprinkled with social proof from past customers.
Yes.
You know, and so it's forgiving. So you don't have to be a diligent ad manager and exclude the people who've purchased. You can just sort of throw it up there. And actually that's a bit of a strategy that we do in our agencies. We will intentionally show ads to existing customers.
Interesting.
because people comment and say, I bought these shoes, they're so awesome. If you've got a good product and you've got happy customers, obviously. But people are actually, if they love your product, they will be really generous and they will shout it from the rooftops.
Yes.
And then we turn the ads off, showing to our customers, and suddenly we've got this ad with raving reviews that are legitimate.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, we can go out to people who've never heard of us with an ad with amazing social proof.
Yes, I've never thought about it that way. That's great. Yeah, what a good thinking. Okay, so now let's switch gears and talk about, so that's kind of search and a bit of retargeting and a bit of social. What about display advertising? Because I must say, I've really only had a bit of a play with display advertising, not through Google, but through the media network. So ACP, who were formerly Fairfax, and one of the other local media organisations, they often offer that display advertising as an add-on or a bonus when you book print advertising. Well, they're not printing at the moment, but they would offer this display advertising product. To be honest, I was never convinced. I got it. Like, I got that you got the logo in front of people, but I just wasn't convinced of its potency. Can you talk about can you talk about a kind of scenario or an example where a small business might really find that display advertising as a really sound option as part of their marketing campaigns?
Yeah, I think, and I've done a lot of display advertising, contrast to it's probably the biggest struggle people have with the Google network is they really struggle to find a way to make it work. The best success that I have had with it, first of all, if you're going to do it, and the rewards are great, but it's probably going to take a little bit of tweaking and testing to get right. It's not that it's not worth doing, but you're not going to hit it out of the park straight away like you might do with search. So search typically, like you're swiping, as I said, you're getting in front of exactly a target customer, but you pay for that privilege. You pay with a pretty much a high cost per click. But hey, it doesn't matter because there's a huge amount of intent there. On the display side, it's significantly cheaper from a cost per click point of view, but you can show up in places that you don't really want to. So the success that I have had with display, especially probably for small business, is to just start by picking some specific websites that you want to advertise on. So I had a client, not a small business, admittedly they were quite a large business. They were in the home building niche. Okay, so they sold bricks and, flooring and roof tiles and all that kind of stuff, right? So what we did is we implemented a retargeting campaign, basically. Yeah. And it's kind of like putting a little birdie on your past website's shoulders, because Google's going to tell you when they left your site, where do they go afterwards?
Yeah.
And as a marketer I view myself as on a constant quest to deeply understand my target customers, that information is gold where my banners show after they leave, right? So this particular home building client, they would leave my client's website and they would go to betterhomesandgardens.com, homebeautiful.com, and all these like home decorating sites, like, online magazines, or they're publishers, but they have an online magazine component. Okay. And then I thought, well, of course, right? Somebody's looking to buy bricks. They're renovating, they're going to be redecorating. So they're getting excited about what their new home's going to look like and different things that they can buy, right? So that's how we started with display for this client, is we would just go, hey, Google, I just want to advertise on Better Homes and Garden and homebeautiful.com and Elle Decor and all these public online publications that talk about renovating and decorating, because Google revealed to me from a retargeting campaign that when somebody left my client's website, these are the types of websites they go to. So it makes sense to try and capture all their readers, because some of them will also be interested in renovating. Not all of them, of course.
Yeah.
But hey, this is where paying for a click only, not an impression, really comes into play.
Yeah, right.
So and then, if you're a local business, you can restrict your ads to only show up in your geographical area. So it's not like you're showing Australia-wide or country-wide. You layer on top of that the regions which you service.
Yeah.
And the key with success with this is to have some kind of offer or something that people would be interested in. And I mean, you could just promote some content, a blog post or something.
Yeah.
But we were promoting like a style guide, like different color schemes, which was really successful because that was a perfect match for that market.
Yeah, right. Okay, great. So would you say then it's probably better to go with Google for display advertising as opposed to some of those media networks which might only show the ad on their media-owned sites, whereas Google will have a broader range of websites to show that display advertising on? Would that be right?
Yeah, look, I'm not a massive fan of advertising on those third-party media sites like Fairfax. I've had clients who have done that. It's had very poor results.
Yeah.
But that might be, I mean, I don't want to diss them. I don't know much about them.
Yeah.
I can only speak from my own clients' experience. They didn't have a great result. But Google, you've got the full amount of control at your fingertips. So
yes,
I personally like control. I want to bid how I want to bid. I want to be able to change things. I want to restrict it to a certain geographical area. So I'm not it's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, no, that's great. Okay, fantastic. Now, what about YouTube ads? So I always got the impression that YouTube ads were for the big guys, because I guess the YouTube videos that I would view, it would be the big brands that were kind of showing up in those pre-show ads. One thing that I notice about my own behaviour is as soon as the skip ad button comes up, I'm pressing it. And two is it did seem to be the kind of polished brands that were on these ads. So for me, I just thought, oh, maybe they're too expensive, or they're maybe a bit harder to kind of place or whatever. And then recently, I've seen more kind of really rough and ready ads that have popped up, to the point where I think, gosh, have I just landed on the wrong video? Because this seems really homemade, not polished, definitely more small business-esque in its style. Can you just explain a little bit more about that YouTube ad scenario?
It's funny you mention a rough and ready ad, because I have a rough and ready ad which is working incredibly well on YouTube, actually, and no one is more shocked than me.
But that for me, like, I sit there watching them because it is more like kind of organic content. It is more real. It's not this polished. Like, as soon as you see the polished stuff, I think you go, ad. Do you know what I mean? Whereas these videos, I'm like, what's this? I'm a lot more curious. So talk to us about this.
Well, I mean, I think if you think about it, what the videos that people do like to watch on YouTube are those native and organic type videos that are not polished. Like, the YouTube community doesn't really like that. And if I think about kind of the stuff that I watch on YouTube, it's a lot of cooking. But I mean, I would happily watch someone just in their own kitchen cooking something delicious. It doesn't have to be polished. In fact, if it is polished, like I'd say a Nigella Lawson, I kind of get turned off. It's like, no, that's not real. Like that, I can't relate to that. Because what I make isn't going to look like that. Let's be honest. And so it really, I am actually a big fan of YouTube. More so recently than I have been.
Wow.
And it's it does have a few hurdles for people, in that you do need a video, and some people are not really confident about getting in front of a camera and on video. But if you think about it, the way I think about it is this: YouTube is all about moments. Okay, people go to YouTube for a number of different things. When they're in a certain moment, they go to YouTube to learn about something. They go to YouTube to do something and to seek help or reviews or something like that. So they're in a certain moment. And therefore, if you can think about what your product or service is and the moment that someone's in, there is so many people on there searching for information on that. And personally, for my type of business where I sell Google ad training, right? That is my business. YouTube is the perfect advertising platform,
Right.
because someone's gone to YouTube to seek a video on how to create a Google ad campaign.
Sure.
That's exactly where they've gone.
Yeah.
They want to learn it. That's why they're on that platform.
Yeah.
Contrast that to Facebook, where they might be interested in it, but they're standing in the line waiting for their coffee. And yes, they're going to download my Google Gotcha guide, for example.
Yeah.
But chances are they're going to forget about it because life carried on for them.
Yeah.
They got their coffee or the bus came.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're never going to open what they've downloaded. And I personally find they're not a great subscriber. They're not a good, potential customer. Whereas somebody,
they're a tire kicker. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, yes, they're interested, but I find that they don't really open my emails afterwards. And that, so not all clicks are created equal, I believe.
Yes.
And so YouTube, these are the people who actively want to learn.
It comes down to that intent.
Down to that intent, which is why YouTube is the world's second largest search engine, because keyword targeting on YouTube is incredibly successful. And there is so much ad inventory on there. I think Google boasts there's 500 hours loaded every minute, uploaded of new content.
Yeah.
It's insane. Like they're insane numbers,
Yeah.
So if you sell a product, I can't even think, I don't know, like my home building client, right? Selling bricks.
Yeah.
I mean, a friend of mine recently told me he built a garage, right?
Yeah. Yeah. During
COVID, we're coming out of, the lockdown.
Yeah.
He built a whole storage unit in his garage. And I said, wow, and he's a corporate guy, right? Like, what does he know about building?
Yeah.
I said, how'd you do it? He goes, YouTube. Yeah. YouTube. That was it. So imagine if somebody was selling building products, right, for that type of thing. That would be the perfect match.
Yes.
He's a DIY guy.
Yes.
Right? And so it's not for every business, but you don't need a polished video. You just need a really good script. You need to hook people in. So those first 5 seconds are critical.
Oh, okay.
So what I say in my YouTube ad in the first 5 seconds is I call out my target customer.
Okay.
And the idea is to qualify people, but also to disqualify people.
Yes. Yes.
Right? I want only the people who are wanting to implement Google Ads for their business.
So how do you call that out? Like, for example?
I say exactly that. Are you a business owner who is currently running Google Ads and you're not getting results and you're wondering why?
Great. So you've highlighted the customer, you've highlighted the problem. Excellent.
Highlighted the problem. So if they're not, they just skip and I don't pay a thing.
Yes. Wow. I love it.
If somebody skips your ad in the first 30 seconds, it's free. It's free.
If somebody skips your ad in the first 30 seconds, okay. Well, when I skip, it's always within that 30 seconds. I don't think
so they haven't paid a thing.
Yeah, right. Interesting. Okay, that's great. That's some great background into YouTube ads. I'm going to go and check those out, because one thing I noticed, and we do have an episode coming up with a social media trainer we're going to deep dive into YouTube more from the organic side of things, because for me, I've never been able to get any traction on YouTube organically. And, you and I were both saw each other at Social Media Marketing World last year. And honestly, every single workshop I went to was about YouTube, because I wanted to try and understand how to build a channel. And what I took away from that was, 100% how unique the platform was, how it's nothing like Facebook or Instagram. You can't apply the same approach to YouTube. It's quite nuanced in the way that people consume the content in terms of the episode, episodic nature, and how they want to just kind of keep you stuck to the platform. And almost I guess all the social media channels are about addiction and making you, stay there longer and visit more frequently and all the rest. But the way that the people who are making YouTube were working very, very, very differently to how, some of the best Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn marketers were working. So it sounds like the YouTube ads might be quite nuanced as well.
It is nuanced, it is. And if you think about comparing advertising on YouTube to doing a video ad on Facebook, for example, it is very different, because on Facebook you can have a whole lot of text above your video, and there's with YouTube ads, the video has to do all that heavy lifting in terms of copy and hooking people in. But as I said,
true.
I have a very rough and ready video. It's literally me standing on my balcony, hair blowing in the wind type thing, like it's not, I mean, you will laugh when you see this video, and it works.
Yeah, I bet.
Purely because I'm getting in front of it.
Yeah. It would be approachable. Like people would go, oh, she gets small, she gets, business ownership and she's there for the right reasons. It's not some polished, unattainable, coach or business consultant or whatever. She's real, and she's someone I can relate to.
Plus, I am swiping in front of exactly my target customer. So I choose specific videos that I want to get in front of. So I find high traffic videos that rank organically in YouTube, and I put my ad in front of that. So it's kind of like getting my way to the top of the organic SEO queue, which is a little hack. And I do, as I said, keyword targeting for people searching for Google training. So it's exactly my target customer.
Oh my gosh, so smart. I love it. Now, talk us through some of the mistakes that you see. What are the kind of common mistakes that you see all too often business making with their Google advertising?
Well, as I sort of previously mentioned, I do have what's called the Google Gotcha Guide, which probably is a list of lots of the mistakes that people make.
Great.
And admittedly, Google doesn't make it easy for people. And I think it's quite stupid of them, to be honest. I find it very, very short-sighted, because what ends up happening is people fall for these gotchas, or little digital landmines, as I also like to call them, which are designed really for Google to make more money and people to spend money. And the end result is people just throw up their hands and go, to hell with Google, I can't make it work, and I'm not going to do any ads.
That's right.
That's why I think it's really short-sighted.
Yeah.
But there's a couple of things that people got to watch out for. Okay, the first thing is the default setting when you're creating a campaign is for the search network bucket and the display network bucket to both be on at the same time. Which, based on what we've talked about today, you don't want to do that.
No way.
You don't want to do that.
Yeah.
First of all, let's say you do want to advertise on both, right?
Yeah.
You definitely don't want to combine them in the one, what's called campaign, because when it spits out the information and the data that you're going to look at, the numbers are completely different. So typically on the search network, you won't get as many impressions, but you'll get lots of people clicking on your ad. So that's called the click-through rate, the number of people who've clicked on it based on how many people have seen it. So you'll easily get a click-through rate, a minimum of 5%, right? Which is fine. And you'll easily get what's called a conversion rate. So of the people who've clicked, those people who actually contact you, also of a minimum of about 5%. It works incredibly well, right? Contrast that to the display network, where you'll be lucky to get a 1% click-through rate. Once again, it doesn't matter, right? But when you combine those numbers together, averages lie, right? So therefore they need to be separated into separate campaigns.
Because they're achieving separate objectives.
They're completely separate objectives. They're completely separate ads, actually.
And
it just makes zero sense. So the default setting is for both of those networks to be lumped together, and Google kind of says, it's recommended to get your ad in front of more people. Well, yes, Google, thank you, but I'm just going to structure it in a very structured and granular way so that the numbers make sense to me. Okay, so that's probably a big gotcha, right? The other gotcha is what I talked about before with the match types. So you want to not use what's called broad match type keywords, where Google will show your ads, for terminology all around the country, like locations, for example.
Yeah.
You definitely don't want that. So you want to use what's called the modified broad, which with the pluses in
With the
front
plus in
of
front.
the keyword.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's so common, very, very common gotcha number 2.
Yeah.
The third mistake that people make is they don't add what's called negative keywords in their account, which would say to Google, which would prevent your ad for showing up for things. So a classic example, I always a bit cheeky when I do presentations, is I'll do a Google search for bad dentist Port Macquarie, for example, and I'll put bad in there, and lo and behold, there's always some unsuspecting advertiser who hasn't added bad as a negative keyword, or worst, or free, and all this kind of. And so I've got many screenshots of worst dentist Bondi, for example, and all 4 ads are showing.
And you just, these are the things that you just wouldn't think about, isn't it? Like, fancy that you actually have to go in and specifically say, please don't show my details for someone looking for the worst dentist, or someone that's, wow. Yeah. And these are really easy mistakes to make.
And you know what, if I didn't know any better, I too would make these mistakes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so easy to do, and yet so many people do it and they've got no idea.
Wow.
So,
anyway,
gosh. I could go on, but I think
I was going to say there's probably a billion that you've got there, but they're 3.
There's probably about 10.
That gotcha guide, can people sign up to grab that on your website? Is that something that you offer? Or
they can go to teachtraffic.com/gotcha, so GOTCHA.
Okay, cool. I'll put that in the show notes as well, because that sounds like a great list of mistakes to avoid. So, okay. What I see a lot of small businesses do as well is outsource this, because like me, it's too much. And particularly if the business owner is doing the marketing themselves and they don't have the time to kind of sit here and get their head across it. It takes a lot of time and effort to do. So they outsource it. Now, what should people be looking for when they outsource this? Because honestly, what I see a lot of is they've outsourced it, but they have absolutely no idea what's happening. So they know that they pay, $800 a month or $1,000 a month. They get reports. They might get reports. They might not get reports. They get a whole bunch of numbers back. And, as we kind of touched on before, we don't really know the context of those numbers. So when we are looking for someone to outsource it, because I honestly think outsourcing is a very, very smart thing to do in business, what should we be looking for in a supplier?
Okay. Well, that is a good question. And there's a couple of traps which people fall into, actually. So one of the big traps is that an agency there's many agencies that do this, and I feel very strongly about this because I feel it's very unethical, is that they own that ad account. So for example, say I'm helping you with Google Ads, Jane. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you come to me and go, hey Lana, can you run my Google Ads? I'm like, yep, sure, no worries. Let me create an account for you, and I'll get you all set up, and we'll be on our way, right?
Yeah.
When I do that, I am setting up an account under my name, under my login, right?
Yeah.
And therefore, I own that data.
Yeah.
Okay. So if a time comes up in 6 to 12, whatever months, and you say, Alana, look, I want to do it myself. I want to change providers. I'm gonna move agency, which is fine. You're entitled. You lose that ad account. I don't hand that over to you because it's mine. And so therefore you might think, well, what difference does it make, right? What do I care if they have that ad account? Well, what about all that valuable data that is in there? What about all the search terms that somebody typed into Google that clicked on your ad? That is really, really valuable information. Imagine, you're a lawyer in Port Macquarie, right? You want to know the terminology that people have used, typed into Google that clicked on your ad, because you want to know how many phone calls it generated. You want to know what somebody typed into Google which actually resulted in them calling you.
Yes.
Those are what's called your converting keywords. And actually what many, many businesses do is they will run Google Ads for a few months to determine what are their converting keywords, and then go to their SEO guy and say, hey, SEO guy, don't try and rank organically for this keyword because it doesn't translate to phone calls.
Yes.
I want you to rank me for this keyword because I know it translates to phone calls and leads because I've tested it with Google Ads, right?
Yeah.
So you get insights as to what are your converting keywords, and equally important, what are your non-converting keywords.
Yes.
And there's a huge amount of IP which you build in your Google Ad account, which you want to own. You want to own your own data. And I'm a big believer in this. And people don't realize this difference when they engage an agency that says, let me set this up for you. So actually, like, I teach workshops at Sydney Uni, and guaranteed there will always be one person in the room who comes in and go, oh, my agency owns my account. They can't get access to it. They can't see anything to it. I had someone come in who didn't even own their Google Analytics account. Their Google Analytics, that's for all their traffic. There's a huge amount of really valuable data that is that's their data. Like, it's just really wrong,
Yeah. So don't abdicate. Delegate, don't abdicate.
Yeah. So the idea is that you create your own account under your own login, and you give the agency access to that.
Yes.
Right. And then if and when you want to sever ties with that agency, you remove them from your account and you add in your new agency, and then your new agency can come in and go, right, here's what's happened. How can we hit the ground running here, rather than starting again and testing all these keywords that they don't know what's worked, and you're going to waste a whole bunch of money. Basically.
Cracking tip. Yes.
Okay. So that's something, a big thing to look out for. I'm a big fan of chatting to a potential client and really delving deep into, like, what's their the metric. So I've run an agency for a long time, and the metric that we are measured by as an agency, and the yardstick which we manage an account, is always cost per lead. How much are we paying to acquire that lead? Not a click. I actually don't care what I pay for a click. As long as, what have I paid to acquire that customer? And that requires a communication with the client to say, hey, what is your maximum cost per lead that I will be managing your account by? And as long as we are under that, hey, I'm good to do whatever I need to do. So a client gives me a budget. Let's say, I don't know, $2,000 a month on ads. And I know I've got to get leads for under $30. And then I choose, it's my job to spend that money in the best possible way, as long as our cost per lead is below that threshold. So that involves setting up the proper tracking. So we often set up 3 different types of tracking. We set up people so we can track people who call straight from an ad. So that's call tracking. We set up tracking where someone clicks on the ad and goes to the website and then clicks on a phone number, as well as online form fills. So there's always usually a minimum of 3 different types of conversion tracking, and we can see what goes on. And actually a lot in the legal space that happens typically on a desktop. People on a desktop, they click on the ad and then they see the phone number and then they call. So we swap the number for Google Ads. Probably getting a little bit confusing. But anyway, essentially what I'm saying is, both parties need to be clear on what is their target cost per lead. Even if you don't know straight away or it changes later, it doesn't really matter. But you want to, I mean, I've audited so many accounts that they haven't even set up conversion tracking. They don't know. No,
but it's funny because, like, there's been a lot of circumstances where small businesses have kind of handed their reports to me whichever supplier that they've used to put an ad campaign in place, generally it's someone who's gone out and sold to them this, golden campaign experience that they can get with this Google advertising. They have absolutely no idea what they're buying. They've just been sold the dream. And then they come to me with the reports and go, I don't even know. But the numbers that they've been kind of pointed towards is, here's all the impressions that you got over the course of this month, and here's all the click-throughs. And when I dive, and I've got limited knowledge knowledge of these reports, but I know enough to be able to kind of read them. You know, I remember one client came back and they'd paid a ridiculous amount, like in the thousands of dollars, and they'd had something like 17 click-throughs to their website. But when we deep dived further, it was 17 click-throughs to their homepage on their website, which really didn't give, you know, away a lot of information. They were a club. I was like, that is the, and then I showed them what like our Facebook activity had been doing in the month as a comparison.
Yeah.
And that was without the advertising component. That was just the amount of clicks that the Facebook generated to specific pages with specific messages on their website as a comparison. Like, they have no idea what the numbers are. And then, you know, the salesperson of whoever's selling the product is just pointing them to the impressive numbers of impressions or whatever. Yeah. But as you said, like, that's it's worthless. It's absolutely freaking worthless. You know, we need to be focusing on the return value, like what are these leads worth? But the other thing I would say to that is then small businesses also have to know. So yes, okay, to actually understand how much you're prepared to pay on a lead, you have to understand how much that client is worth to you. And that's when a metric comes in. Like, so yes, you know, we'll go back to the lawyer Port Macquarie example. You know, if you're looking for clients to come in and get a will organised, well, that will transaction, that independent will transaction might be a $300 transaction. So then you could probably say, okay, well, a $30 cost per acquisition, you know, $30 to actually pay for that $300 transaction. Well, that's not too bad, you know, depending if you've done your other costings within your business, and that looks okay. But you've also got to consider the lifetime value of that client. So, you know, and wills might not be the best example. If it's someone who's a bit younger who's coming in to do their wills, well, you know, they might do their wills then, and then, you know, if you capture them on capture their email and keep you know, front of mind and build a relationship with them, well, then they might come back in, you know, if they have a dispute with their neighbour, or they might have a business and they might come back in with their, you know, their contracts, with their legal contracts, etc. So it's about kind of understanding the value of your customers to understand, well, how much can I actually pay to get these customers that's reasonable.
Yes, absolutely. And that's where really understanding your business comes into it, you know?
Yeah, that's right. And this goes for any marketing. You know, you're never going to really truly understand the return that your marketing is driving unless you do have a fairly good comprehension of the key numbers in your business. And it's really important to know that, so that, you know, when you say, well, is my marketing working, or I'm spending this much on my marketing, what return is it bringing? You've got to have that knowledge of your numbers to be able to you know, put that into perspective. And speaking of which, and gosh, you know, I think we're going to have episode 2 with you, because I've got so many questions. But my final question for you for today is, in terms of those metrics and measurements, what are the key numbers? I mean, we've talked about leads, we've talked about click-through rates, but are there other kind of metrics that you measure on a monthly basis to see if the advertising is actually getting anywhere?
Honestly, I'm just a big believer. It just all comes down to, what am I paying to acquire that lead, if at all, right?
Yeah.
And I think really, I mean, look, as within an agency that's optimizing campaigns all the time, we do look at other things, but at the end of the day, of what is important to that business owner is all about what is our cost per lead coming in at. And I guess my job as an agency or as an educator teaching people is, how can we reduce that cost per lead? So if it's coming in too high, then it's my job to help people identify, right, okay, what's driving up the costs here? Is there a certain strategy which is not converting and therefore bringing up our average?
Yeah.
And therefore, how can we get it below that threshold? Yeah. And is there scope for us to reduce that cost per lead? So, for example, it would be adding more negative keywords to prevent our ad from showing up for things and therefore bring down our cost, and therefore the conversion rate should be hopefully improve and the cost per lead goes down. So there's lots of little levers that you can pull to bring down that cost per lead. And obviously, as I said, adding negative keywords is one, or turning off keywords that just don't convert. Maybe they're just too browsing type keywords and people aren't quite ready to buy. And that's okay. And we do that all the time. Keywords that we thought would work really well. And so like going back to the dental example, I still have many dental accounts, but we will often do a very, very tight location targeting campaign. So, 5 kilometre radius around the address of the dental practice. But then we'll bid on a very generic keyword like Dentist Sydney. So somebody has to be within 5 kilometre radius of their address. But then they type in something very general. And there might be situations where that works. And equally, there might be situations where that doesn't work, And so therefore, doesn't work, we turn it off. It's actually... We manage it and I teach people to manage it on a very unemotional level. The numbers kind of don't lie, Once you buy enough traffic, you see the conversion rates and the click rates, they're pretty much consistent, actually. So it doesn't work, right? It's not working. Let's turn it off. We'll come up with another strategy. Is working, great. Let's add to it. And that's why it's so important to have that conversation with the client of, are we getting leads for an affordable cost? Because if we are, then any sort of, savvy business owner will say, well, then my budget is unlimited then because I'm making money. If you put in $1 and you make $2, why wouldn't you spend more?
100%. So then it just comes down to capacity. So as much as your business can take in terms of capacity, absolutely. Why wouldn't you fill it? So that's awesome. And I know, that you kind of show up for businesses in a couple of ways. If people want to get in touch with you and either get you to help them with their campaigns and to actually do it for them, or learn how to do it themselves, can you tell us a little bit about what you do and how people can find you?
Sure. So there's probably 2 distinct parts to my own business. So I have an agency, which I've alluded to, which I've had for the last 7-8 years, called greenarrowdigital.com. And so I help people in my agency. But then probably about a year ago, I launched an education program teaching business owners how they can do it themselves so they don't need an agency, because actually many people don't really need an agency. Once they learn a couple of strategies under their belt, they're kind of away, really, and they don't need to keep paying, the expensive agencies. And look, to defend the agency fees is fiddly work, and we have to pay for staff, and that sort of is why it does cost a lot, because it's very bespoke and it's not really a cookie cutter approach. But you absolutely don't need an agency, especially for small business very much in a regional area as well. And so therefore, as I said, I launched the education program at teachtraffic.com, and I teach people I've got full training courses on Google Ads, Facebook Ads, Google Analytics, and basically any kind of that online stuff that they can find.
Awesome. Fantastic. That's great. And as I said, I think we'll have to get you back for episode 2 for part 2, because you are such a wealth of knowledge. I really appreciate your time and for sharing so generously all of those tips. As I said, I'll put your details in the show notes, and also the link to the Gotcha Guide, because I think that's something I'm off to go and download now. Not that I ever want to really take on that Google world. That's something that I'll always just hand over to you, I think. Brilliant. Thank you so much for that, Ilana. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me on. It was a real pleasure.
Awesome. What fantastic tips from Ilana. Okay, so my 3 biggest takeaways from her very clever advice were to: 1, if you are outsourcing your Google advertising to an external supplier, make sure you own your own Google ad account so that you can keep all of your history and data, because this helps you make decisions about running future ads. Number 2, YouTube ads. Don't feel like you need to have a polished ad produced by an advertising agency to get traction on your ads for this platform. As long as your content catches the attention of the right type of viewer within 5 seconds, you can drive real results. Number 3, Google gotchas. Clearly, there are some little technical tricks that can help you avoid wasting a lot of time and money on Google Ads. I am going to download Ilana's guide to make sure I am across all of these potential minefields. Number 4, although personally, I'm not actually going to try to navigate the Google Ads platform myself. As a business owner, I believe my time is better spent on other activity. This is one job that I will outsource so I can have a team of experts making sure that they completely optimize this investment for me. But if you are going to do this, it helps to understand what to look for in an external supplier. And Ilana was very clear that the cost per lead or the cost per acquisition was the key metric to look for here. So if your digital agency is only coming back to you with click-throughs or impressions on your reports, it might be time to have a word to them about how you can drive a better return. If you are enjoying all of the small business marketing insight that is being shared out on the How to Do Marketing show, please be sure to hit subscribe and leave a rating and review. I love reading these reviews and seeing those ratings and seeing my subscriptions soar. It really, really makes me smile. So thank you to everybody who's done that so far. Also, we'd love you to join in the discussions about small business marketing in the How to Do Marketing group on Facebook. I'm in that group all the time, answering people's questions and publishing snackable marketing tips. So join us. Just go to Facebook and search for the How to Do Marketing group. And until next